Okay, so today we're just going to be doing a quick Q&A video. And sorry if I managed to miss your question or something like that, but I tried to gather all the ones from the previous video and the Q&A thing on my community page at least. So let's start our questions and answers program. So the first question is from Optimal. And Optimal asks if I have ever thought about putting up a challenge to test the skill of people, and if they make it, they will help you with projects or something. It would be kind of cool, like a trip code CTF. And I assume CTF is an acronym for like contests to follow, or it's probably not capture the flag, but anyways, P.S. It would be nice with a shout out. I was the one with the Commodore monitor. So, I have thought about doing contests before. I did something sort of like a contest where essentially if you followed me on Mastodon, I was going to give out T400 to one of the people. And I ended up giving out the T400, and overall it worked kind of well. I would think about doing it in the future, but I think I would pick something a little bit more interesting, like perhaps a contest where you could submit a project and I could just review it, and then also have a sort of Coreboot or Libre booted system as a prize, because I don't think a shout out's worth much from my channel. So anyways, though, I guess moving on to our next question. Joshua Nguyen, hopefully I pronounced that correct, says, will you ever switch to purism? So occasionally it crosses my mind that I should probably try out some other distributions, but I'm mainly thinking Arch Linux, and I guess you're referring to Pure OS. But moving on to hardware, Purism makes hardware that tries to mitigate the ME and comes with Coreboot and their Librem line of laptops. So I find that kind of interesting, but the deal breaker for me is probably, well, cost. I mean, it's not a large product where there's going to be a bunch of used Librem computers on eBay for cheap. So and the next thing is the keyboards. I really like my TrackPoint and I like my ThinkPad keyboards. So one last thing to state, they do have a mobile phone, which I think is kind of cool, and I think it also runs Pure OS, so it's not like a Android sort of device, which I find to be quite interesting. But in terms of that, I was actually thinking about maybe getting a Pine phone or something similar to that type of hardware if I was going to go and review a mobile device. But that's my thoughts on Purism, so I'm probably never going to switch to Pure OS, but some of their hardware is kind of interesting. Okay, so Arden asks, what are you going to use when 12-plus-year-old core bootable hardware is just too old to realistically use? How averse are you to using proprietary firmware? So I guess I think this is mischaracterizing a few things with Coreboot. I do have some 12-plus-year-old hardware. I mean, for example, the laptop that's acting as a teleprompter right now is from the 90s, and over here is my X200, which I think is 2008, so about 12 years old. But Coreboot actually supports more modern models, like they're getting, well, they have T540p support right now, which is Haswell, I believe. It's the always fourth generation, the generation after Ivy Bridge. So with that, I think over time Coreboot's just generally going to catch up to newer and newer chipsets, but it's going to be a gradual process. If you're talking about blobless Coreboot without like the Intel management engine or like LibreBoot. They have been kind of stuck on Core 2 Duos for a while, but I think that eventually it might catch up a little bit. Maybe not necessarily through the LibreBoot project, but I feel like ARM processors are probably going to get a little bit more popular in the future, and they offer probably better performance than some of the really old Core 2 Duo chips at this point. And Coreboot actually is supported on some, well, ARM CPUs, so because of that, I feel like I'm eventually going to have to move to some sort of modified Chromebook, or maybe even make my own laptop. I'd love to see like a free software supporting a single board computer, e-paper display, and tiny single board computer, lots and lots of 18650 batteries, and essentially just have a laptop with like a 3-day battery life, but an unfortunately horrible refresh rate. But I think that would be a good laptop for me. Anyways, moving on to our next question. Alex asks if I have any thoughts about bringing back a Mumble server. Well, I was recently thinking about getting back into self-hosting my website. I currently use Linode, which is some Linux cloud hosting service, but I do have some network instability problems at this house, so because of that, it's a little bit hard to do self-hosting here. But if I could get like some sort of UPS and probably just throw in some sort of Core 2 Duo system, I'd love to host a Mumble server and probably a Mind Test server again to go along with it. And if you don't know, Mind Test is kind of like a free software Minecraft clone, which is actually pretty decent. So yeah, I might end up doing some self-hosting again. Plus it'd be nice to have some place to store my ROMs and config files. I guess I could put them on GitLab. Probably should do that in the meantime. But to avoid rambling, let's get on to the next question. So Shane Clintwood asks, hey Tripcode, I would assume you're a student. I've been watching for a little bit now, so I don't really know. We're all going back to school. Do you run your proprietary school software on your main system, or do you keep a separate Windows drive for all the garbage? Well, honestly, I just use the school library's computers whenever I needed to run something like on Windows or things like that, but that wasn't really necessary most of the time because I think I did like MIS, where they provided a virtual machine you could just log into, and I think you could use like XRDP, I think, to get into that. And from my memory, it worked fine, even though it was a Windows virtualized environment, but I wasn't actually the one hosting it, so it worked out quite well for me. I have run virtual machines for certain tasks, but I don't really have a separate Windows drive. So, yeah, I mean, the only time I've considered that is with printers, so, yeah. Anyways, though, I probably should just get another printer. Next question. Devoli asks, what toolkit do you recommend for the ThinkPad T60? I want to replace the CPU, but scared of messing something up or getting the wrong tools. Okay, this is a really, really simple question. So you need 2 screwdrivers. You need this, like a Phillips, and you can I'm not quite sure what size this is, but if you buy like one of those $4 Walmart toolkits, it'll get the job done if you're replacing a CPU. And the only other thing is on the T60, the CPU. Actually, I think this is a yeah, this is a T40, but it's the same gist here. You need a flathead to rotate that, and so just get yourself a little variety pack run-of-the-mill screwdriver set if it's for a one-time use job, and you should be able to get it done. So hopefully that answers your question. Of course, there are better tools, and I think the iFixit kit is relatively good. I haven't bought one myself, but I have met people that have had one, and it seemed relatively high quality. So on to the next thing. Okay, so H. Magellan says, hopefully I pronounced that right, maybe it's H. Magellan. Read clear. What do you think about the future of free down to the BIOS computing is? Okay, I didn't say read clear, my script kind of messed up, but maybe Power 9 or hypothetical future RISC-V platform. Your channel is awesome, by the way, very informative. Well, thanks for the compliment. So, what I think the future is probably going to be most likely, well, so first off, you need to define the degree of free down to the BIOS computing. So, like I said earlier, I think the Coreboot project is moving towards some progress on porting to more modern systems, but I don't know if they'll be able to completely get rid of all binary blobs. So with Power 9, it's prohibitively expensive in my opinion, unless you're doing some sort of development work or server type setups. Even though the Talos workstation does seem to be more affordable than the typical industry servers. But anyways, aside from that, I would imagine that it's probably going to be some fork of Coreboot, maybe on ARM or something similar to that. So, well, hopefully that answers everything. But let's move on to the next question. Okay, Glass Hand asks, howdy Chirpcode, love the videos, very inspirational and informative. My question is involving internet browsers. I've always used Firefox and I've been happy with it, but the recent shakeup at Mozilla and their apparent commitment to making money in any way possible is making me worried. Will this lead to privacy or even performance concerns for Firefox users? Would you recommend Firefox to your friends or an alternative web browser? Why or why not? Thanks again. I hope everything in your life is going well for you, and peace. Well, peace to you too. So, in terms of web browsers, I have switched from Chromium to Firefox recently, but I noticed it is taking a little bit of a performance hit. I'm not quite sure if that's because a lot of websites are now optimized for Chromium or Chrome-based browsers, but in terms of that, what's actually been kind of interesting to me is the ungoogled Chromium project, so I might give that a shot, but I typically don't recommend web browsers to people, because most times, unless they're using like Internet Explorer or something, they're kind of set in their ways. So yeah, I don't think I'm gonna go tell like my grandma, you need to install ungoogled Chromium, compile it yourself. So hopefully that answers your question. Sorry I couldn't give a more definitive answer. Okay, so Bionic Man says, have you ever considered attempting porting Coreboot to another board yourself? I'm sure it is really hard otherwise, more people would do it, but He seemed to be quite adept at this kind of thing. I thought about it. I don't think I ever got past the thinking about it portion. But in terms of doing some work for the Coreboot project, I have been recently trying to get Coreboot to work with my Dell 9010 SFF, but I was recently put on hold by my swipe clips kind of wearing out, and I have to do a manual flash on that, so that's going to be a little bit of an issue. So I actually can't get the thing to read. So that board does allow internal flashing, but I messed up, and I did talk to the developer of the port on that, and he helped me, or at least gave me some advice. So I am going to try that again in the near future, but at the current moment, I guess that's about what I'm doing in terms of porting and things. I might try the Dell. I also have a Dell Optiplex 9010 MD, or not MD, DT, which is the desktop version. So that's kind of the flat one versus the super small one. And supposedly that has a chance of working, but it's probably going to be missing some features. So I'm probably going to go test that out and give my feedback back to the developer of that port. But that's currently what I'm doing in terms of ports. But one other interesting thing though is they do have a auto port option. So if you do find some hardware that is very similar to something that's already supported, and there is a wiki article on the Coreboot page for porting. I don't think it covers the auto port on the old wiki, but with that you might actually be able to do some Coreboot ports to hardware that is similar to like stuff that's already supported in a much shorter period of time. But anyways, hopefully that isn't getting too off topic, and we'll be going on to our next question. Sorry about the probably wrong pronunciation on this, but Homonym Alice asks, "Hey Trip, what's your opinion on LibreBoot being in a stagnant state? Maybe more deblobbing Coreboot PCs in the future. Only Coreboot with the CBIOS payload supports Plan 9. Anyways, stay safe and dry." Well, thanks. I'm not really in a region that's going to be affected by the hurricane that was recently in Texas. So, moving on though to the question, LibreBoot is still an active project. It's just that their current porting endeavors are mainly focused on a lot of other Core 2 Duo systems. So I think at some point they should probably try to refocus onto some sort of cheap ARM device, since they did do a ARM port for, I think, the Asus, or maybe it's an Acer C201. So, and I think that has everything working except the graphics acceleration. And it's just a small Chromebook, but since those things are probably going to be easier to get a hold of in the future than older Core 2 Duo systems, I think that would be a good move for the project. But in its current stagnant state, they are actually doing a little bit of work on other Coreboot systems for Core 2 Duo, so it isn't completely stagnant. So I hope they move on and, you know, eventually get to the LibreBoot X220 coming out when GNU Herd finally gets its release, or finally becomes supported. Anyways, though, I guess that sums it up. Kind of got a little bit rambly there. Question 11. Iron Johnson says, what VPN is tripcode approved? Well, I just use private internet access. Not quite sure if it's the best or worst VPN out there. I just know it was relatively cheap. I originally chose that one because I got a bunch of free 1-month trial things for it at some Linux festival a long time ago. And yeah, tried it, used it for about like 3 months. Just ended up buying a year of it. Worked out alright. Sorry I couldn't give you like a more definitive, I guess, or more well-researched suggestion there, but it's cheap and it works, so yeah. Oh yeah, this was sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends and NordVPN. No, okay, so on to the next question. Computer Aided World asks, I have got an IBM 760 XL and was curious if you knew where to get working batteries. Hey, so you might be a little bit out of luck there, because for the people that don't know, the IBM 760, I have a really beat up one, is essentially a 90s ThinkPad. So there are not going to be really any new in production batteries for it, but you could search around and you might find one that'll hold a charge for like maybe 30 minutes, an hour, or something like that, but you're not going to find one that's close to the original capacity. What I would suggest if you're trying to get the original performance off of it is go with a resell if it doesn't require you to flash a chip on the controller for the lithium-ion batteries, or if you have nickel metal hydride it might be easier, I'm not quite sure. So essentially for that, if you don't know what reselling is, it's a relatively simple process sometimes, and sometimes it can be more complicated, but you take a battery, you take the lithium-ion cells out, you put new ones in, and it's good as new. Well, except for probably getting the TSA's attention when you go into an airport, but rather than that, you'll have better battery life than probably new, and yeah. And if you want to get information on that, check out ThinkPad forums. They'll probably have the information on the IBM 760, and maybe there'll even be someone providing a service like that. I think at one time someone was doing that for the X60. So moving on. Okay, so Reed Williams asks, have you ever looked at NyxOS? It is a cool distribution with a cool package manager. I installed it on a T400. I got secondhand because it was the only distribution I could get that LibreBoot to cooperate with, but I was amazed with its unique approach to package management. I have not taken a look at NyxOS. A lot of people, whenever I do a live stream or something, and the question does come up if I try NyxOS. So far, though, it's a little bit far down on my list of things to try. The unique approach to package management kind of concerns me, mainly because I like having quite a bit of packages with my distribution of choice, which is Debian. I tried Arch Linux for a bit, but so yeah, I mean, I'll probably get around to it at some point, probably just not anytime soon. I think I'm probably going to do like a NetBSD or GNU/Herd video at some point in the near future, but NyxOS is on that list, but it's going to be quite a while from now. But I haven't tried it, and as far as LibreBoot goes, it seems like a lot of operating systems actually do cooperate with it. At least I know like Arch Linux and Debian do. So, and I imagine most of the like FSF approved distributions will work just fine on something with well, LibreBoot. So I'm not quite sure what the issue is with that. Anyways, though, on to the next question. Max Julius Friedrich Vasmer asks, oh my god, I'm probably pronounced that wrong. Okay, this one's just going to be embarrassing at this point. I'm going to leave that part in. Asks, for your Q&A video, what is the backstory of your speech sound disorder? So, okay, ignore the stuttering earlier. I do not have a speech sound disorder. I did have a FFmpeg audio delay issue earlier, and hopefully he's referring to that. Okay, so I did have some issues with FFmpeg and audio sync, but I did resolve them using, well, earlier I had a process where I'd cut the clip, and cut the clip, and cut another clip, and then overlay that section of the clip with the audio from the one I was going to insert over it. So essentially, it would just take the entire audio, cut off the sections I needed, and put that on top. Not entirely accurate, would get a 0.1 second off each time, and eventually I'd start having dubbing issues. So what I did instead was I found out there's some way to like concatenate all the clips together, and I just did that with a replaced audio stream, and I think that's what worked out. I haven't looked at the code in a while, but hopefully that's a good enough explanation. And I guess this concludes the quick Q&A video. And peace. And if I missed any questions, I'll try to answer them in the comments. And have a good one and stay safe.